Welcome to the Courting Happiness podcast. This is a space where self-care becomes part of your day, a space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare of suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness, and my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Courting and Courting Happiness is about a true courtship, I like to say, commitment with happiness. The K in courting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 32, and we're going to be focused on accomplishment. Accomplishment. Well, I will tell you this. In the theory of well-being, accomplishment is really a broad category. It focuses on achievement, competence, and success towards one's goals. Now, according to one of our founders of positive psychology, which is Dr. Martin Seligman, achievement equals skill times effort. Think about it. Achievement equals skill times effort. He believes that skill and effort are elements that have really characteristics that are necessary in higher achievement. I will also say that as a college professor, I found that teaching students the value of the process of learning is as important as the lesson itself. I often talk about this in my orientations at the beginning of each semester for all of my classes. And I share the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, which is all about growth mindset to help them. So today, what we're going to do is this. We're going to focus in on some exercises that are going to help serve you concerning achievement. And you can find these exercises in one of my favorite books from one of my favorite authors and scholars who, well, I should say scholar, who I think I talk about her all the time on this podcast. And her name is Bridget Greenville Cleave. You have to check out her book called Practical Guide in terms of positive psychology. So Practical Guide to Positive Psychology. And I love it because it really provides great resources as it relates to the different dynamics within positive psychology. And then, like what we're going to talk about in a moment, it will provide evidence-based strategies that can serve you in terms of really increasing your well-being. So I want you to pull out your well-being journals and write down your responses to this exercise. If you're new to this podcast, I always talk about the importance of having a well-being journal. You can create one on your own, or you can download our free well-being journal by visiting our website at drkortneyalston.com/free well-being journal. That's drkortneyalston.com/free well-being journal. So let's reflect. Now think about some activities that you might have completed recently that have contributed to your sense of competence or mastery of achievement. And when you're thinking about it, think about it in the forms of, again, do you relate to this as it relates to work, right? So is there something that has happened within your workplace that you feel this great sense of competence or mastery of achievement? And when I'm talking about work, it can be defined as paid, or unpaid. So maybe it's some volunteer work that you have found great fulfillment in. You know, volunteer work is incredible in regards to being able to allow us to share our gifts and talents with the world. And so possibly it's, volunteering, or maybe it's within your career or calling or job, right? So think about it in terms of that dynamic. Then I want you to think about, if it's a paid position, think about, did you find competence in your work that allowed you to really feel this great sense of achievement? Was something, accomplished recently, you're like, wow, I did that. And you're very proud of what you've achieved. One of my mentors would share this with me. She has a folder that has all of her thank you notes that people have sent to her, and a folder that also has levels of achievement. And I love that idea. I have something similar, which I'll share with you in a moment. But what I love so much is that with this activity, right? One of my dear mentors, who's actually also a very dear friend, who also listens to this this podcast. I'm pretty grateful for that. And I love that because what she could do is just pull out those files, right? The files in terms of looking at some of the thank yous to see about the people that she has touched and impacted and has helped and served. And then that other folder that lists all of her, different achievements that she can also be reflective on. Because it's interesting in life. I've noticed this recently because I just literally finished my evaluation as a professor for my university. And I looked at all these different achievements that I had cultivated and had accomplished, right, this year. And some of them I forgot because, sometimes in life, what we do is we go from one achievement to the next, and we may not even be reflective as it relates to that achievement. And I thought, wow, I got to make sure I get better at this because actually, the interesting part is after I submitted my evaluation, I go, oops, I forgot this and I forgot that and I forgot this. Even though the evaluation itself was pretty lengthy in terms of the things that I had achieved, which I also didn't think of, while I'm going through this. Like, oh yeah, okay, did this, did that. And then when I looked at it, I go, wow, this is a lot that's happened over the last year. Wow. And then I thought, you know, you need to start making sure that you are archiving these moments. And so what I love so much about my dear mentor and friend who creates these files that I think are so magical, right? I'm like, wow, I have to do the same thing. So what I've done is I have now a file on my computer, on my desktop, that has now all of these achievements for me to start, adding to the list as it happens. So hopefully I won't forget, so I can be reflective of that. And I think it's important to always look and to be very proud of the process and the things that you've achieved. I always make sure I encourage my students to do so. At the end of the semester, a couple of weeks ago, I had them do a day in regards to reflection. And I asked them three questions. The first one was, what are you grateful for this semester, right? Because this has been a very stressful semester for all of us, right? All of us, students, faculty, staff, administration. I'm talking about an educational standpoint. But the interesting part is that it's just not one industry. We have all been affected as it relates to the pandemic. And I've noticed that in regards to the self-care sessions that I have facilitated with journalists and executives from a multitude of other professions. So this has been a very stressful time. And so I asked students, think about what you're grateful for. Then I said, share what transformative lesson stood out for you this semester, right? So really what helped transform you as relates to what you learned this semester. And most of the responses were about growth mindset, by the way, which I was really happy to see. And then the last one was, which I think is so important as it relates to one's well-being, especially if you're stressed and you're not even having an opportunity to really be reflective about all the things you've accomplished because you're just trying to get through the day, right? So that last question was, how are you going to reward yourself? I wanted them to think about all they've achieved, what has allowed them to be transformed, and then reflect on, how are you going to reward yourself? What does that look like? And so what I love so much about the filing system, it allows you to be reflective and to also reward yourself. Like, wow, I'm going to reward myself for that achievement or that, acknowledgement. Another thing I've done that it may be something that you may want to replicate, that is years ago when I was working on my applications for PhD programs. And let me set the stage in terms of this. So I worked in the industry of journalism for almost nearly 2 decades before making the transition to work on my PhD. And so I started off my my PhD journey in my 30s, and I knew how competitive the whole process was, and so I decided to apply to different programs, and applied to 7, and I actually got into all 7, which I was like, wow. And I was really surprised by, because I knew how competitive it was. Didn't expect it, really unexpected. It wasn't the outcome that I thought that would happen, but I'm really proud of it. And so I decided to put my what do you call it, acceptance letters in this book that I call Rockstar. It's this Rockstar book that stays at my parents' home. And so when I go home and I visit my bedroom and I stay in there and I begin to think back on different memories. Now, I also should say that at my parents have retired in the Atlanta area. My mother passed away in 2016. My dad is there. And what I love so much about visiting my parents' home is actually the home where my parents retired. So it's not the house I grew up in, but the interesting part is that I feel so connected to the city of Atlanta that I felt like I've been there my entire life. So when I go back home, back into that room, even though it wasn't the room where I grew up in terms of kindergarten through high school, but it was a space where I did grow in. I remember by the time my parents had retired, I was making these different transitions in my life from either different TV stations, working as a reporter, as a television reporter, making my transition in management as a news director. Then on top of making the transition, as I mentioned, in terms of PhD programs, and then also making a transition as it relates to personal decisions in my life. I look back in that bedroom and I think about how I spent a lot of my time healing there, healing in that space. And so I really, when I think back, it is a very much of this great place for me to recognize my achievement of really going through the process of healing and pushing through and valuing, honoring my feelings, and also valuing the process. So, what I love so much about that Rockstar book, right? It shows so much of the process. And I think within the book, because I haven't looked at the book in probably, gosh, maybe a year because of the pandemic. I really haven't been home very frequently. And when I look back on that, I get to see not only those acceptance letters, but I've also put in when I had various achievements or was recognized and featured when I was working as a news director too. So so I think it's wonderful to have this special, literally a home, right? I talked about my parents' home, but I think it's a great start in terms of thinking about how you're going to create a home for your achievements. What does that look like? Are you replicating what my dear friend and mentor does in terms of creating your file? Are you going to, replicate some of the things that I shared in terms of maybe creating something on your desktop where you can just start to, write them down and so you won't forget like I did. I'm like, oh, wow, I forgot that one. I forgot that one. Or you can do what, Kortni Alston did before she became Dr. Kortni Alston in that room at her parents' home, taking a beautiful scrapbook, spending a lot of time in Hobby Lobby, by the way, in Michael's to make it pretty, and putting all of my different achievements and also really showing the journey. The journey. So I want you to think about that. What does that look like for you? So let's also now talk about our personal life, although I kind of talked about mine throughout, telling you about how to go about really archiving your achievements. But what I love about Greenville Cleve is that she asked, what about your personal life, like hobbies and parenting and caring, right? In terms of achievement. And I love that she shares that because it starts to broaden our mindset in regards to other levels of achievement and what that looks like. Is it a hobby that you're proud of? Is it when you're parenting, right? Is it when you're mentoring? And then caring. So caring for others, maybe caring for a person that you just met and needed assistance. And you thought, wow, okay, I'm so happy I can be here to serve that individual. Or it can be with people that you see every day and you're always thinking about how to really serve and to help them. So what does that look like for you? So when you think about the day-to-day activities, do you have a great sense of achievement? If so, what are they? What are they? What are your great sense of achievements that you feel when you're going through your day, just day to day? So let's also think about this. What activities can you do more of to increase the feelings of accomplishment in your life? One of the things I like about love about a well-being journal is it allows you to reflect and it allows you to think about, wow, I think I'm going to replicate this. I really enjoyed when I had this meaningful experience. Wow, I think I need to incorporate more of that in my life. So your well-being journals can really serve as a great companion for you in regards to your journey as it relates to happiness, but I like to say as it relates to really thinking about increasing our well-being. I would love for you to share your achievements with our community. Uh, we're here to cheer you on. I would love to cheer you on one-on-one in our private Facebook groups, because I will tell you this, correction group, our private Facebook group is this great space, but it's all about celebrating you. celebrating you. So we're here to cheer you on. I'm here to cheer you on. I would love for you to share some of these achievements that you've written down in your well-being journals. And I will tell you this, I would love to see your well-being journals in our Facebook group. So if you are really proud of yours, like I told you about the one I created, that's the rock star, I would love to see your well-being journals posted in our groups as well. And also, if you want to get started in regards to creating your own well-being journal, great. But then if you also would like to download our free well-being journal to help get you started, you can go to, again, drkortnialston.com/free well-being journal. Wow, I love meeting all of you. And so I'm hoping that I can meet more of you in our Facebook communities and across all of our different social media platforms. I cannot wait to meet more of you soon. I can't believe that this is the end of our podcast. So we'll continue, right? But I want us to continue this conversation online. Let's continue this conversation. Join us on Instagram at Courting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with the K. Also, I hope you join that private Facebook group I told you about. You can find us at Courting Happiness Podcast Community. Again, our private Facebook community is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.